First thing you want to do is you want to take this front faceplate off and then take off all these screws here. There's 8 of them. Next will be taking it off. If you can't pull it off with your hand, then you have to get in between here. The smaller the screwdriver, the better. You just bang the other end. Just remember how everything goes back together. Take some pictures, because the front you might have a little nipple here, air nipple. So you just gotta remember how everything comes off. Just put everything to the side, same as this thing. If you have it in, I just call it a hat. I don't know the proper name, but it's a hat. So just make sure that you know how to put it back together. And same as your side discharge. If it's on the side, up, across that way, you gotta remember how it goes. Okay, and next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try to, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We're gonna try to get a screwdriver in here to hold that impeller so we can move this. Now, we don't want to force it because I think this one has some the cooling fan in there. I think it's plastic. We don't want to break any of those off. You can kind of feel it. I can't see it right now, but usually you can feel it if it is or not. Some of the 48s, some of these have the metal ones, some of them have the plastic ones. Oh, that's plastic, so I don't want to break that. So, you do not want to break that. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take the back off. Take this off, there's only one screw in the middle here. Put it off to the side. The screw doesn't come out, so don't try to take it out all the way. Okay, right on the back, you can kind of see right here. Try to get a screwdriver on that. The big slotted screwdriver, the biggest one you can get. You know, hold that and try to spin the impeller. Now, a third way of doing it, if you hold this in the back with the screwdriver and you unscrew it here, if you can't do that, the other option would be right in the middle, or right in the shaft there. You can kind of see the shaft. So you want to clamp this on it. Or if you can hold it with a normal wrench. Now if you see, sometimes they'll have a shaft on the impeller. I'll show you in a second here. Now they'll have the shaft, and sometimes you can see it. So it depends on what. If you have the original one, you shouldn't be able to see it, the impeller, or the impeller cover. So, but if you have no choice, if it's not working for you here, you know, you don't want to put a screwdriver in here because it's plastic. Found out that's plastic. You want to do this, is the sides here, hold it in place, and then you can get a tool on here and turn it. Now, if you see that shaft cover, this part, you might have to crush it. You might have to get a new impeller just to try to get the seal off. So, but if you get this far where you have a hard time taking it off, more than likely you're going to break this impeller. You're going to need a new one anyway. But we're going to try today to get this changed out without breaking it. Okay, we managed to get it off. No cracks on here. If they're cracked, replace this. If you're looking for a new one, all information's right on here. There's 1 horsepower, there's 2, and there's 3. Now I just go by the thickness. 2 horsepower right there. So right in the middle, we'll say 2 horsepower. A lot of times this is all worn down, so you can't tell. But the ones on the side here should be visible. But usually you just go by what this thickness is. So I'm not sure what maybe it looks like a 1/2 inch. So it's 2 horsepower and it goes up by that seal. We're going to replace it, and then we're going to take this front Wethead off. If you watch some of my other videos, you might have saw me take this out, this part here, right out of the motor, take the 4 screws off, and then pull this right out. Now that's our last option, if you can't get the impeller off. But for the 46, or for the 48, executive 48, you try the back, and you should be able to clamp it here. That's usually what I do for the executive 48. And you should be able to pull it out. But for this, if this doesn't work for you, if you put the clamp on there, then you're going to have to take these 4 screws off that are in the back, pull this motor right apart. You can look at our other videos under the Executive 456. This one's just a smaller pump, lower horsepower, lower amperage. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to take the 4 bolts out, or we're going to undo it from the Wethead. We don't want to take the bolts out all the way. Don't take them out all the way. So sometimes we have to move this out of the way. Now, you don't want to pull it out all the way. You can just kind of undo it here. There's a little clip. Undo it a bit, and then you can move this up or down. Sometimes this is out of the capacitor. It's in the way of the bolt we need right here. So there's one here, one down below, and one over here. So you want to undo that. Okay, once you get those 4 long bolts off, remember, don't take them out about an inch. That's it. Just so you can get the front off. There we go. Got that off. Put the pins back in. Now for the shaft here, make sure you clean this all off. The threads, this one's pretty good. So clean it off really good, and then I'll link everything down below that I use, the grease, because sometimes the shaft will get eaten away by all the water that was leaking. So you want to grease that back up with the grease that I suggest down below. Just so when water, next time the seal goes, and it will go, next time the seal goes, then the water's just spraying and bouncing off this. You'll prolong the motor a little bit better. So I goop it up pretty good, even the thread a bit. Easier to take off next time. Okay, so to take the other part of the seal off, what you do is take the screwdriver, put on an angle, and you want to bang that on the silver part. You want to bang it right out. Just bang it down. Flip over, and you just clean all that out in there. I'll link this right down below, the seal for the 48. And also I'll put a couple of impellers, because you might have the 4 horsepower in this, the 3, the 2. So I'll do the 2, 3, and 4, just so you don't have to look all over the place for it. And then the seal for this, I'll link it down below. So for this part of the seal, what I do is I take a little bit of silicone. Again, I'll link down below the sealant that I use. Just don't use any sealant. Just get the one that I suggest, so you're not having a problem down the road. So put a little bead. There's a metal lip. Just want to put that on the lip. All the way around. And when you push it in there, you can't push it in all the way by hand. It's hard. So use that screwdriver again. And then on an angle, just kind of bang it down. Just kind of teeter-totter it down, going one side, going the other. Just go back and forth so it goes all the way down. And you'll tell, like you could tell that's solid once it hits the bottom. Not straight. So try to get it straight anyway. You don't have to bang hard, so it sounds solid to me. See all the silicone squeezed out all around it. Just make sure it's not in the way of the shaft going through. Same as here. And another thing to do too is when you're taking this out, look around for any hairline cracks. Pretty noticeable, so you don't have to look that hard, but look for any cracks. For the wet head, the front of the wet head, where it cracks the most is just on the inside here. You'll see it right on the inside, little hairline cracks, and that's from when you tighten it, the union back on here. It kind of breaks this off. Little hairline cracks, and it leaks there. And a lot of people get frustrated because you can't really see it until you take it all apart, and it's usually right on the edge, on the inside of this part. But if you flip it over like this, you can usually see a hairline crack. So inspect everything, and that's where your most common spot is, right in here for the front of the wet head. These, not so much. They don't really crack too much. You might want to check the inside here. Hairline cracks all the way around. Again, it's just from over tightening it. That's what this, you gotta remember, your union, that O-ring, that's what it's meant for. It just, you should be able to do it just by hand or give it a little tweak with a tool. And you don't have to Arnold Schwarzenegger it on there. So, okay, so we got that part of the seal. This one here, yeah, these are always fun to do. We have to try to pull that out without breaking this. So a lot of times what I do is, I'm not going to do it today, but you can take this and put it in a pot of boiling water like you do pasta, let it boil, and that rubber there gets like a little softer. Like it's rubber, but it's hard. Like it's meant to stay in there. I don't know what it's made out of, but it's pretty hard rubber. But it helps when you have boiling water, and you can kind of get a really small screwdriver in there, or whatever tool with a pointer on it. Try to peel it off without breaking this. So I'm going to try to take that off without breaking the shaft. Okay, if you can grip it just a little bit. Now, be careful. I've broke lots of these. You don't have to hold it that tight, just so you grip it a bit, because I've crushed these. If you kind of try to Arnold Schwarzenegger it with it all like that and crush it, try to hold it, then you'll break this. So I'm just trying to hold it in place, and I'm just going to teeter-totter it up. Wiggle it back and forth. See? That's it. Sometimes that was easy to get off, but you don't want to pull. You just want to kind of go around like this. And it's best to change all this stuff. It's best to do it when you find out. As soon as you find out, like it's running and it's leaking and stuff. That's why ahead of time, it's good to order parts ahead of time. That's why it's good to do your yearly maintenance and buy the stuff that breaks down the most. If it's a seal for a motor, get all the seals that you need. Get a couple of them. They're not expensive. Get your bearing. Get at least one bearing for each pump that you have. Heater element. Get an extra heater element or two. It's good to have it on hand because it's so much easier when the pump's warm, and just pull it out and do the seal and everything just pops right out because everything's warm. So, okay, so with this, I'm going to put it back in. But I'm going to show you another trick. See, right here, it's all wet. Now, if I put that in there, it's probably going to pop in there pretty good. So, if this is brand new, if you have a brand new one and your seal's brand new, and you try to put this on, good luck trying to push it in. So, what I do is, again, doesn't hurt it. Actually seals it once it cures in there. Just put some silicone. The same silicone we use on the other side of it. And it's just meant to slide in. But also, it helps it seal it. So with it dry, you can try, if you have one that's dry, try to do it dry first. And do exactly what I'm showing here without the silicone. And then try the silicone. So with the silicone, that's it. You're going to be sitting there struggling trying to do exactly what I just did without the silicone dry. When both of them are dry, trying to push it down. So that's a trick right there. And once that sets up, there we go. It seals it in there pretty good. So we're going to put it all back together now. Now, if you have to do a bearing on this, just watch our other videos. Pretty much, it's if you have to change the front bearing on this, and if it's noisy, if this pump is noisy instead of humming, well, even when it's humming, it could be the bearing anyway. But this one here, the seal was holding it. So if you ever have to change the bearing on this, just watch your other video on the Executive 56 or any other. Really, it applies to any other pump. Even the small ones, because it's the same steps. You still got to pull the motor apart. It's the same thing applies. It's the same area where the bearing is. So okay, so these pins, so they're all back there, right? We push them back about an inch. So you want to do is you want to line up as best you can. Get one going in the back here, but you don't want to screw it in all the way. You just want to catch it, and once it feels like it catches, go to the next one. As soon as it feels like it caught, go to the next one. Get all four of them caught first, because you might have to jiggle it a bit. It might be off. So get all four. And then tighten that one a bit. Now, if you're going to use a drill, I always suggest not to use a drill, but I'm just using it for the video. Use a nut driver. If you want to use a drill, don't tighten it all the way. Just kind of get it in there. Okay, almost close. And then use this, because I like to feel, you can feel how tight it is. You just want to tweak it a little bit. With a drill, you don't know how tight it is. Now, you don't want to go over tight, because you'll just break it. So I just go, so it just touches. See, I can't feel that. If I went any more, there's a possibility I could have broke the bolt in there. So make sure all four of them are just snug. Again, you don't have to worry about Schwarzenegger on there. Okay, spin it around. I'm going to put the impeller back on. Now in the back, remember the slot in the back? Hold that with a screwdriver. Now, putting the impeller back on, you just tighten by hand. And you'll know when, because it stops. That spring is in there is compressing it against the other part. Okay, there. She's tight. Okay, and remember that hat. Remember how it goes. See, you might think it's that way. It's like that. And what this is for is this Wethead. It's the same one as for the 4 horsepower and the 3 horsepower. Just the impeller's smaller. So they got to fill that gap that's in there. So this is like a floating piece that floats in there once this other part goes on there. What's that other place go? There's no gap. If you kind of look down where the discharge is, you'll see it. So we're not losing any pressure. Okay. So get this back on. Now, if you're thinking about cutting out the video, don't. I'm going to have to show the back too. So there's only one way it can go on. There's a groove. See this groove here? And then right here, the discharge, it lines right up. Now you could be a little off, but it's the closest bolts to it. So here I'll set it off. I'll go here a little bit off, but I just have to move it the closest bolts so I know it's lined up now. Line it all up. And then when you put your screws on, make sure you put one on one side, one on the other, and go crisscross like a star. Just go back and forth. Again, it applies. Using a drill, applies the same thing. When you put it on, don't tighten it all the way in. One on one side, one on the other. Okay, once you get all the screws in, snug, the back. See what I noticed here, my ground came off. So you got to make sure that in the wire diagram is right there. Just make sure you haven't pulled any wires out. Okay, put the back on.